and welcome to the Recipients podcast series for 2024.
All right.
This morning, I am joined by the fabulous folks from the Disabled Employee podcast who have taken out the Social Impact Award in the National Awards for Disability Leadership. So I'm going to give you a little bit of info about these fabulous folk. The Disabled Employee podcast was conceived, produced, and presented by young people with disability, speaking frankly about their experiences in and out of employment. It is a powerful critique of systemic discrimination with advice on workplace rights, radical self-care, and workplace accessibility. And let me tell you a wee bit about the Social Impact Award. This is awarded to disabled people or a collective of disabled people who achieve visibility of disabled people by using mainstream or social media or other digital interfaces. And here we are with these three fabulous folk who are the Disabled Employee podcast folk. I'll do a quick whip around. Welcome, Dureece. Good to see you.
Hello.
Welcome, Thanh.
Hi, thank you for having us.
And welcome, Britt.
Thank you for having us. So exciting.
Great. It's great to see all of you. Fantastic to see you. Start by asking to all of you, how did you decide to do this? How did you get into doing this and making a podcast?
Well, I might start us off. So this is actually a very funny story. So we were all part of the 2023 to 2024 CIDA, Children and Young People with Disability Youth Council together. And as part of that, there was sort of this long running joke of what if the Youth Council had a podcast? And as part of the Dream Network that CIDA was running, there was actually a spot for possibly some social media to discuss how job seekers with disability navigate workplaces, navigate job seeking, and navigate all of the complications and intricacies that come along with that. And so when me, Dureece, and Britt and Naomi, who was and I think was the social media officer, communications officer at the time, we sort of brainstormed this little idea that maybe a podcast would be a good medium to sort of share those stories that we had, as well as maybe provide a little bit more advice. And that's really how it started. There was this sort of pipeline that went on. But I'll pass it maybe to Dureece and see what he thinks about it.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a meme everywhere where people just, go on about, oh, hey, bro, we should start a podcast. But we actually did it. Because it was kind of a joke at the beginning, but then we sort of in our, fortnightly meetings with the youth council, in between breaks and stuff, we'd talk about how the podcast might be actually a pretty good way to put out information and discussions about the experience of being young and living with a disability, because a lot of organizations, whether they're nonprofits or commercial businesses, the way they advertise stuff is not often packaged in a way that's appealing to young people or in places they're not even going to find. Like I found that a lot of organizations that I care about almost entirely post on Facebook, which I mean I still use. Maybe I'm a bit outdated, but a lot of people on the younger side of Gen Z, I'm at the very beginning of Gen Z. They don't use Facebook anymore really. So and podcasts are a really big thing. And we realized like, hey, this isn't a joke. Like this could actually work. This might actually be a really good idea. And yeah, a few of us expressed interest and we got together over a planning meeting and that was that.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And Britt, had you been involved in any podcasts or anything like that before?
No, I hadn't at all, which was very exciting. Like I've done videography and I've done drawing. So I did the artwork for the disabled employee. Um, I've done stuff like and video editing and all of that, but never actually like a podcast setup. And I found it really, really great that this was born from our little lunchtime, jokingly, lunchtime
Really?
chats. Um, of just us going on rants and then everyone coming back going, what the heck are you guys talking about? Like, and then yeah, that was where it was kind of born. It's like, oh, you guys should do a podcast. And then Tan came to us and like, no, really, we're gonna do a podcast, guys. Like,
Yeah. So I would love to send some flowers to Naomi and Jace, who were part of the Dream Network, but also allowed us to do this in the first place as part of Cider. Because Naomi actually approached me and said, because I was working with her directly, and said, hey, I'm the communications officer. And I know you were thinking about doing a podcast as a joke, and there's this whole bit going on, but what if you actually did? Can you put together a team? And I said, I will assemble the Avengers. I will do that for you.
Fantastic. How did it go? How did you know that it was working? Dureece, how did you know it was getting anywhere? It was reaching any people? How can you tell? Did it make a difference to anyone?
Well, that's the thing. In the beginning, and as we were recording it, we didn't know. Well, I didn't know anyway. That the attitude I had going in, and I think is the same with Britt and Tan, is just let's just do it anyway. Hopefully, it reaches someone. If this has an impact for one person, that's a victory. Um, if only one person listens to it, but they get something out of it, that's a victory. Because there's nothing stopping that person from going and telling a reflection they've heard on the podcast or that they've had after listening to the podcast to their friend, to their coworker, to their colleague. Yeah, so I personally didn't know if it was going to have any kind of impact. But that's not the point. The point is just to do it anyway, just in case. But I did. To be honest, I don't actually know too much about how much people have felt about it. But I'll occasionally go back and look at the comments. I get kind of shy. I'm like, oh, is there anything there? But no, you'll see some nice comments. And I heard that it was used at an employment workshop or something.
It was.
Yeah, and apparently it was received well there. And that was I got a message from Jace telling me about it, and I was like, oh, dude, I'm all mushy now. I don't know what to say.
Fantastic. And I was going to ask you that. Where is it on the regular sort of Apple and Google platforms? How do we access the podcast? It's a series, of course.
That is a fantastic question. I know that you can definitely access it through the Youth Hub of Cider. I don't know if you can access it on other platforms. Really, this was intended just to be a sort of test, a sort of pilot to see if a podcast could even work. So, I mean, if it gains a little bit more traction, Cider have considered putting it on mainstream platforms, but I don't know
Oh,
what that thought process is.
it's on YouTube and
It's on
Spotify.
YouTube.
Yeah, all four episodes.
It's on
Disabled employees.
Spotify?
Yeah, no, it is. The audio only is on Spotify, and the video, well, like
Send
image
help,
with
folks. I didn't know that. But now
yeah,
you do.
yeah. Because the art that Britt did for it, that's like on the screen during the YouTube one, and that's got captions, and the Spotify is just audio. But yeah, no, it's on. You're in the podcast and you didn't know that.
I didn't know. Someone definitely told me that, and I
What?
lost it in the source.
it's
Oh,
also
that's
being
brilliant.
shared on Instagram, Cider's Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah, snippets of
There
it
you
are on
go.
Instagram, but no, the full oh my God.
That's wonderful. And of course, the DLI actually has a Spotify playlist of podcasts of our members and the award recipients. So we'll add it to our Spotify playlist
Oh, hell yeah.
because that's an exciting thing to do as well. And we do like to share. We do like to share. Check in with you all. What are some of the barriers or roadblocks you encountered around doing this? And we ask that in the context of, we're disabled people. There's often a space where things happen in our lives where people decide, oh no, you can't really do this. I mean, you've got the marvellous Cider folk, the Children and Young People with Disabilities Australia, for the people who don't know that, the fab Cider folk, behind you to the hilt, helping out with Naomi and Jace. But, what did the rest of the people around you think when you said, oh, we want to do this? Was it a jump in with both feet thing if you've got feet, or was it a yeah, not sure you're going to make it, guys, or here's some things you really have to start thinking about, or money? Yeah, any of those, what did people put in your way to
I
get this
don't,
happening?
sorry, Brett speaking. I don't think we encountered any of those real roadblocks apart from time constraints.
Right.
So obviously, us as young people with disabilities, we had our own kind of times of great constraints, and we had budgeting that we had to stick to for the episodes and how long. We were very ambitious. We wanted very long episodes, but then we also realized that that would also not really be accessible for those of us with attention span issues. But I think we were very much encouraged all around, as far as I know, unless the other two have any.
Yeah, so we did receive so much love and an outpouring of support from the Cider team, and from other people who heard about the podcast and or I guess the initial ideas from the podcast. Everyone was really, really encouraging. Um, there were obviously a lot of time constraint issues, and there were some accessibility barriers that you always have to work around and navigate, but that never really sort of created any type of roadblock. We were super lucky in that, if there was really something that came up as an issue, maybe scheduling, maybe any type of sort of extra thing that we wanted to add on, Naomi was the point of contact where I could just email her and go, "Hey, what do I do? How do we do this?" And being the most wonderful communications officer she was, there was always that point of advice and that ear to, you know, have listen to all of the what's going on, freak out moments that would happen.
Yeah,
So
those.
much support.
Oh, fantastic. Dureece, do you think this is the sort of thing that will make a difference for that wider audience? I mean, clearly this is useful in the context of, you talked about a conference or a workshop that it was presented to. How do you envisage it traveling and making a difference, making ripples out there in the wider world?
Well, look, I'm no expert when it comes to, search engine optimization or algorithms and whatnot. And no matter how good what you create is, there's billions of other videos, podcasts, and everything that you've got to compete with. So I don't know how that's going to go, but I think it's the type of thing. I don't know that this would travel well just organically because it's just like digitally, like social media algorithms. It's a very competitive stream. I think it'll do really well as a kind of word of mouth thing where like your teacher tells you about it or your co colleague tells you about it or it gets recommended at like a meeting or a conference. And to be honest, I think that's actually a better environment for it. Like we could have done stuff to make it more viral by putting in a bunch of memes and stuff like that, but that might sacrifice the like the quality and the integrity of what we were going for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I mean, it's now received one of the national awards for disability leadership. So hello, there'll be a chunk of DLI socials that go with it as well, of course, and links from our awards page.
yeah, I
So
think that well the funny thing is actually my brother who's like 16 actually randomly messaged me one day. He's like, "Oh, hey, I found a podcast. I think you're in it. That sounds like you. Unless there's another person called Dureece who has your voice." And then I was like, "Oh, oh wow, no, yeah, you found how did that end up in your algorithm?" But yeah, the funny thing is, a lot of the episodes were released spaced quite far apart. We were meant to do them much more quickly, but I was editing the episodes, and I'm also one of the only three people in the podcast. I had a lot of health problems uh, in the middle of the year, which delayed the episodes, and I think not having them come out in like a quick fire round might have affected how much it stays in like the little, the internet zeitgeist. But promo time, we're planning to like republish them or like recirculate them sometime in the near future. I don't know how Outside is going about that, but yeah, so it may reach a wider audience yet.
fantastic. And well, it's interesting too, Tan, you talked as well about attention spans and things earlier, and these things live forever. We know that once it's out there in cyberspace. It's actually there forever on the interweb. And so all of those things where organisations can be listening, people can be checking in, young people looking for work, thinking about, oh, how do I go about this? All of those different types of audiences checking in and realising, oh, here's something that was made. And, it's not always a here and now thing. I mean, this conversation we're having now will be out there for, well, as long as we've got a YouTube channel, I guess. So that's a big thing too. It's interesting, isn't it? What do you reckon receiving this award will make as a difference to the work that you're doing, but potentially the podcast, but your work generally as well?
I mean, I suppose you never really know when you do these kinds of projects, when you're trying to direct it towards an audience, particularly when it's such a close audience to you. We're all disabled job seekers. We've all worked with organizations who have been extraordinarily kind or maybe who haven't been. And so when you create those projects and you try to put something into the world and say, hey, this is my experience, this is what I would love to see happen, you never really know how it's going to hit other people. And sometimes that can be disheartening, and sometimes you can leave you a little bit lost. Again, as I said before, lost in the sauce, as a wise man once said. And I think having this award, to me, and I would love to hear if this sentiment is shared by Dureece and Britt, but to me, it's sort of a tangible indicator that my work means something, and that if I choose to continue with disability advocacy, which I would love to do, that even a small difference, even those small impacts, even those small projects that maybe you come up with as a bit that you go, I would love for this to go somewhere. When you push for those small things and you see them come to fruition, to have an award like this signifies to me that my work can make an impact and can be heard, and that it can reach the people that it needs to reach, and it can have the impact that I would want to have in not only just for that project but also for my advocacy in general.
Yeah.
I
Britt,
would,
what difference do you think it'll make to you?
well, honestly, my partner laughs at me because I do these things that I see as little at the time, and then I'm flabbergasted when they get attention. So I've done a few little advocacy things, and I very much share Tan's sentiment. Um, when you get these when you get these acknowledgements, it's a big, like, you don't think that you're going to get them, and you um can explain it better. Um, my we did this podcast. I knew it was going to get media attention, but then I was flabbergasted when I saw it on my For You page. I was also flabbergasted when I work for a little non-profit organization down here in Tassie. My communications officer came to me and said, Britt, I found a podcast. And she generally does this. And I'm like, oh, cool, that's awesome. What podcast? And she's like, it's called The Disabled Employee. I'm like, oh. Oh. She's like, yes, you're on it. Talking about employment. Do you talk bad about us, Britt? I'm like, no. She's like, good, because I'm going to share it on our socials.
You should have said yes, just for the meme.
But then and then I don't hear about it, and like, I'm flabbergasted for a little bit, and I don't hear about it. Then I get the email that we won the award. I knew we were a finalist, I knew we were a nominee, but I didn't tell anybody because I was like, it's fine. We're probably not, like, it's fine. Like, it's not a big, like, it's a big deal, but like, we didn't win. And then I get the email at work that I won, and I go up to my colleague and I'm like, I just got this email. that I'm a recipient of the Social Impact Award for something I did. And they're like, oh, Britt, that's awesome. Did you know those awards are like read out on national radio? I'm like, no, I didn't. And they're like, oh, I didn't hear your name though. So like you must have been like one of the lower ones. It's okay. And then I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. But then I got asked like, what did you do by another colleague? And I'm like, oh, well, I did this podcast. And they're like, okay, what's the name of the podcast? I want to look it up. And I'm like, oh, great. The Disabled Employee. And then my other colleague who like listened to the radio goes, Brittany, you won the Social Impact Award. I'm like, yeah, it appears so. And she's like, you're printing that and you're putting that on your desk right now. And then so it makes those little impact like those big. The imposter syndrome hits hard when you do these things very much. And when you get these recognitions, it does hit hard still, but it's able to break through that little wall of, wow, okay, I'm doing something really important here, and I am making a difference for my peers. I've seen the difference in the way my younger sister carries herself. With the work I've done and the work she's seen me do, I've seen the difference in young people that I work with. And those milestones, seeing that change and then being recognized for that change, it's really, really empowering and uplifting. And it helps us continue the work we want to do.
Thank you. Thank you. Dureece, how's it going to make a difference for you?
Sorry, short-term memory. The question was like,
how will receiving this award change your work or what you do or how you're seen or the group of you?
oh, right. Okay. So, well, I mean, I guess we do like as a society try to tell people, hey, don't try to seek other people's validation for your work, believe in yourself. But if you get a bit down on yourself, if you're still building your confidence, which I am, a bit of validation really, it goes a long way. It can help you reinforce that confidence that you have and get to that point where you're self-sufficient. And I'd say this has contributed to that. Getting recognition has helped me suppose that perhaps, I can make some pretty decent stuff. The two core areas of interest I have for my career is the entertainment industry and advocacy / humanitarian work. But I've always felt that I'm only really good at the first one. I don't know if I really have any business dealing with advocacy and stuff. But this has helped me realize, oh, hey, I've got some skin in the game. Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting all nervous now. But no, yeah, validation goes a long way. And it'll impact me in that it compels me to do more. What may have been a passing interest in further projects is I'm a little more emboldened now to work on those things. More, offhand jokes about making a podcast or doing XYZ project. It makes me think that in the future, maybe there's other things I've, passingly joked about that could be something I can actually go ahead and do. Especially when I'm, with another team of great people who, have the same cares and skills. Yeah.
I think
Fantastic. Tan, I'll just check in with Britt, who has to head off shortly.
Yeah.
Before we do that, because there's one question I like to ask everybody before they head off, before I come back and ask the other questions of the other two. Britt, who is a leader that you admire and why?
That's a really, really tricky question because I have a lot of leaders that I admire. I have leaders in different spaces that I admire. Are we talking leader with disability or are we talking...
Who are you thinking about today? Some leader that you admire that springs to mind, and why do you admire them?
when I do these things, um, probably the person that got me into it, um, her name is Janet. She was an advocate for the nonprofit group that I now work for. Um, and she assisted me in a really, really tough time. Um, but she was more my brother's advocate, but she taught me the skills to advocate for myself. And then she rang me up one day and she's like, you're coming to my Young Leaders program that I'm creating. You don't have a choice. And then she was the one that got me into cider, and she still follows my accomplishments to this day. And she was very, very excited to see that I had won the Social Impact Award and very proud. Um, and although like she's a leader I admire, and she is probably the reason I'm where I'm at today.
Wow. Thanks
Yeah.
so much, Britt. Thank you, Britt. We know Britt has to beam off early, so it has been terrific joining you, and we look forward to seeing you again next time. Congratulations once again.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. I'll see you
Thanks
guys
so much,
later.
Britt.
Brit
See
fan
you, dude.
club.
Bye. The Brit fan club, absolutely, Brit fan club. See you, Britt.
Goodbye.
See you then. So Tan, you were talking to us about where you think this award might take things, and I'm interested as well in checking with both of you, Tan and Dureece, about whether you think this award might also invigorate doing more of the podcasts, and getting a bit more of it going.
I see the angle that you're going down. I see it. I see the vision. I don't see much, but I see that vision. Look, uh, I think it would be really cool. I think personally for me, I have said what I need to say about this specific topic. There's always more to say, but I think in terms of the overall journey, I think I've covered what I want to say, and I feel like we ended the podcast at a really good spot
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the journey that a disabled job seeker goes through. I think if they ever want to do a Christmas special, hey, I'm up for it. But it's not something I'm gunning for. And I think there are so many areas of disability advocacy and so many issues that us as a community face, particularly when you take into account intersectionality and the issues and the challenges that come with that. That job seeking is only one element. And I think there's so many things that I want to focus on in my advocacy journey. And no matter what, this podcast will always be a highlight and essential part of that. But I think there's more for me to say that goes beyond that as well.
Fantastic, brilliant. Dureece, where next for you? You talked about being interested in humanitarian and advocacy work, but you also talked about the entertainment thing. Where do you think things are heading for you in the next year or so?
Oh, very hard to say. Sorry, is this a different question to the?
It's a question in its own right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Um, so should I not answer the thing that you asked,
Answer the
Tana?
other thing if you want to. Yeah, go for
Okay,
it.
because I was gonna say, in terms of like where is the future? What was it like? Where is the future of like the podcast or something like that?
Is there a future for the podcast or doing more podcasts? But
Um,
also, where do you think you might be heading towards as well? So both of
okay,
those, both. Yeah.
right. Because on that note, like Tan was saying, I look, kind of we planned from the very beginning. The journey we kind of planned. We use the word journey a lot. Was let's talk about all the different stages of job seeking, which is finding a job, struggling at a job or not struggling, leaving a job, and then restarting the cycle. So that's why we did it as those 4 episodes to sort of link that whole cycle together. I think we've covered everything, but I think there is more kind of like sub topics that can be explored. But I think that would either be, it could be done in a podcast, but I'm also really interested in using other mediums. Um, as well, or different structures if we were to do a podcast. But I don't think it would be that specific topic, but it could be. When I say subtopics, I think I mean more of like a divergent tangent. Like let's say you've been unemployed for an extremely long time, and you just can't get back in, and accessibility is a barrier in some way, what does that look like? But that would be a very different task. So I think that episode's that podcast is wrapped up, but I think there's similar or adjacent things that could work. And then if
Mm.
someone wants me or us to work on that, I'd be down.
Tip of the
Um,
iceberg, really, for the show.
yeah,
Absolutely.
but
Absolutely it
I'd be
is.
interested in doing something that's laser focused on extreme long-term unemployment. I think that's a really interesting area to look at. Um,
Mm,
but it would
particularly in
be,
disability. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it'll be a different tone. It'll be a different pace, different structure. Maybe again, maybe a different format. Um, but what's next for me in the next 2 years? I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea. I was
Real.
in, yeah, I was in film school this year, and I was doing pretty well, but I had a lot of health issues pop up, not even related to my primary condition. I had a new undiagnosed condition I had nothing about. Um, that
Yeah. Welcome to
was,
disability. It happens.
yeah,
Yes.
uh, which is a physical condition. Um, different to my main jazz, and I had to drop out of film school. I was just so sick. I was bedridden all the time, and by the time I'd recovered, which was like a day ago, it was very recently. I was looking at going back into uni, but a lot of the film courses have already stopped taking applicants. So I don't know. I have no idea what I'm going to do. Health health problems make things unpredictable, and in spite of any great effort or dedication,
Mm,
it's not something you can just willpower your way through, which I think a lot of people don't understand. um
no, no,
but
they
I can't
don't.
I
Yeah.
can't I can't will my way to better health. That's not how it works. So I don't know, whatever happens happens, as Spike Spiegel once said.
Well, sending vibes. Hopefully it's an up year, not a flat year. Yeah.
Yeah,
An
well, I
up
mean,
year. Yeah.
whatever I
Mm,
whatever I can make work, I'll jump on it.
yeah. So I'll throw that thorny question at you to finish off, Doris. Who's a leader you admire and why?
Um, you mean within the context of disability, or?
Anyone?
Oh God, that's
Who
that's
do
really
you who
hard.
do who do you look at and think, wow, wouldn't mind a bit of that person? Hmm.
Um, uh, that's a very hard question. I'm not really good with these types of things. It's
Think, have a
especially
think
when it
for a
comes to
moment.
people.
Have a think for a moment. I'll flick across to Tan and ask
Sure.
Tan who's a leader you admire and why.
So the person, and there are so many leaders in my life that I admire so much. Um, the person that immediately comes into my mind personally, um, her name is Emily, and she was a visiting teacher that I had when I was a child. And a visiting teacher is someone who comes in and to school and visits children with disability and assists them with sort of this expanded core curriculum that takes into account their disability. So, for example, for me, it was learning Braille and learning how to use a laptop with a screen reader and all of those things. And she's become a close family friend since then. But as a child, she did so much for our family and for advocating for me personally and taught me so many values that I hold to this day about what I want to achieve in advocacy. And, you know, knowing she was the person that was in our corner when, so many people maybe weren't hearing us. She took the time to listen and to then make things happen for us and make things happen for me and my brother, who is also visually impaired, that, we maybe didn't know could happen for us and spoke up for us when we needed it. And I think I take that today and I look ahead and I go, I think those are still the values that I want to embody. And that's what I want to embody as a leader, is to be someone who can be in someone else's corner when they feel like maybe there isn't someone in the corner ready to listen to them. And to then and to then go, hey, if you're struggling, I can be there for you and I can step out. If you need someone to step out for you, I can be your champion. And I admire that so much in so many leaders. And, I hold that still to this day.
Mm. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you, Tan. Thank you. Thank you. Dureece, is there someone you'd like to share with us?
Actually, yeah, I was going to say this because I feel like it's too cheap of an answer. It's too close to home, but Tan will probably resonate with this. At the when we worked for Cider, the manager for our little youth council, her name was Madeline,
Ah,
uh,
yes. I'll
Madeline
go.
Clark. And the ethic that she embodied was shared by like pretty much everyone at Cider. But so I feel bad. I don't want this on the air, me picking favorites. But no, she really because I was working with her the most. As you know, someone with a disability, I'm used to apologizing a lot.
Yes.
I'm used to being made to feel as if I'm a burden. Uh, Maddie really helped me correct that belief and just sort of accept myself for as I am. And that sounds really like that sounds kind of empty, but no, it's actually a really big thing. And when I first applied to work at Cider, I was doing some work in the mental health sector, and I was like, yeah, I think I'm okay at this. Some other advocacy work would be all right. I don't know. I don't know how I'm doing at this. And she really helped me discover a lot of my own self-worth. Um, through, she
Mm.
validated a lot of my work. She would kind of hold up a mirror that helped me realize how ridiculous my own self-doubt was. Um, she was very encouraging and a big part of why I still want to do more of this type of work in the future. But
Wonderful.
yeah, no, one of the I think the word leader kind of, you know, it's someone who leads people and helps them, move forward with their own ambitions and goals and makes them believe in themselves. And she did. So yeah.
Oh, wonderful. That's lovely. That is lovely. And these are the people that make a difference in our lives. It's a wonderful thing.
I
Oh,
I think it's also so cool to see that anyone can be a leader, and
yes,
sometimes you get that imposter syndrome, and same thing with sort of this award and the projects that we work on, and being a leader is even if you can kind of stand there and go, who am I to be a leader, and who am I to stand up for my peers, and who am I to come forward and do stuff in the world as a leader? You Anyone who is any ordinary person can step forward and be a leader. And if you can make that small difference for someone else, that makes you a leader.
absolutely. What a wonderful note to end on. We have run out of time today. Tan, Dureece, and Britt, thank you so much. Congratulations once again on receiving the Social Impact Award in the National Awards for Disability Leadership, the Disabled Employees Podcast. Thanks so much, folks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us. It's been an honor and also a privilege and also fun.
Yeah.
Fun is good.